Chinese interest in Australian property crashes. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I'm still working through that morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from Reuters that's discussing the decline in Chinese interest for Australian property. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, Australia's got a little, just a tiny little bit of what some would call a property bubble. You know, we've now got a generation of people that believe property only ever increases in value. It is impossible for it to go down in value, and houses, everyone should just invest in houses. It literally, for foreigners, you may be a bit just shocked to see it's on every TV show, every get-rich-quick scheme on YouTube. It's all about property. And some of the consequences of that, you can see the sharp increase in property there. It's a bit of a mountain to get into the market. You've got a government that seems to be obsessed with property. You've got a Reserve Bank proposing in internal secret documents or restricted documents that maybe we should just shut down real estate, shut down the real estate market so we don't get a crash. You've got young people proud to be featured in news articles that they're paid significantly above reserve to get into property. You've got people that are just, well, now we're getting into negative equity. And you've got the first recession hitting our nation in nearly 30 years. And a whole lot of people in trouble. But one more thing we also have is a huge amount of foreign investment in the properties, at least 14, 15, 16, 17. See that black line on this chart I'm showing you here? That is the percentage of building approvals that were for foreign investors. See that number to the right? You know, that's nearly at 100%. What does that tell you, everyone? Do you think we have a little bit of a foreign investment-driven property bubble? I'd say it's definitely had an impact, definitely in the multi-res sector. Definitely be felt in Sydney and Melbourne. Well, you can't blame them. Australia's a great country. It's a safer place to have your money. We're a good proxy for the Chinese economy that seem to be shooting insanely. But the people left behind in the dust, a lot of them are the youth now that are going to have record unemployment. Their unemployment really hasn't improved since the GFC. While the country's been growing since then, growing on a per capita basis has been worse than normal. They're the ones experiencing the brunt. And they've got the trouble jumping into the property. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this decline in interest in Australian property. We'll see if it actually happens, if it actually materializes. I think there'll be a lot of people, a lot of money getting out of Hong Kong, and heading to Australia, heading to the UK, and which makes a lot of sense. Their culture is in many ways quite similar to us, and they'd probably be a good hedge to get some Chinese Hong Kong population here in Australia to kind of counter the youth drive to socialism. You need to get some people there to slap some sense into these young people going, no, you don't want to live like that. I fled that. You know, what do you think, everyone? Do you think that could be the benefit? Maybe let's get some Eastern Europeans as well, you know, to get some sense into these younger people. So Chinese buyer inquiries for Australian properties, and it's inquiries, of course. It's always web search data. That's the future of the economy now. It's just web search data. Chinese buyer inquiries for Australian homes fell to their lowest in almost 3 years in May, according to independent data, suggesting multi-billion-dollar housing demand could be another casualty of a diplomatic spat between the two countries. Data published by international property port Jarway IQI shows inquiries slumped by more than 65% in May compared with April, when inquiries surged as Australia emerged from the throes of the pandemic ahead of most rival markets. May's slide coincided with a move by Canberra to push for an investigation into the origins of the novel coronavirus, first detected in China late last year, drawing a sharp rebuke from Beijing and threats of economic reprisals. And that is of great concern to our nation because, well, China is our biggest trade partner. 35% of our trade goes to China. Australia is the biggest iron ore exporter on the planet. And the big portion of that, which we'll see in a moment when it updates, 80% is going to China. Most of that is mined from Western Australia. That state's heavily dependent on demand of resources from China. Our imports, most of them come from China. Let's see if I click here and we can see, will it update to show what we're importing? Yes, it will. Well, there you go. There you can see everything that we're importing from China. The complexity of our economy is quite low. We're ranked 73rd in the world. Our economic complexity, which is what we produce, is at 0.093. I know there are more calls for manufacturing here in Australia, but frankly, the problem is our economies of scale aren't going to compete with other civilizations, other nations. So things are going to be more expensive. So when you have two items put in front of someone, what do people gravitate towards? What do people who are unemployed, who have been suffering a high level of youth unemployment, going to gravitate towards? People are understandably going to go to what can save them money. If we're going to get manufacturing here in Australia, we also need to free up individuals' capital. People need to have access to more of their earning potential. We shouldn't hand everything over to the state. So if you want to build up manufacturing, we need to reduce government and reduce taxations so everyone can work, play, and can afford to pay for locally made goods. Because right now they can't. Right now they can't. You know, people may talk the talk, but a lot of them just don't have a choice. And that's just going to get worse when a recession hits. We can't even afford to buy locally manufactured housing. So back to the article. A prolonged slump in interest from China's real estate buyers could spell trouble for a sector that has been a pillar of Australia's economy in recent years. I thought it's been our entire economy. Mainland China has been a major source of foreign real estate investment, where investors pouring $6.1 billion into residential and commercial construction and home auctions in the last financial year alone. Now, you'll have people, particularly the Communist Party lovers, who will be going, oh, but America put more money into Australia and invested into Australia than anywhere else. All this China fears, it's unfounded. And they're right. They're right. But if you look at the number of applications, the Chinese investment has been a greater number of smaller investments, where the American investments has been like huge, big projects like Wheatstone and Chevron piling billions of dollars into big gas projects. What do you think is going to affect the day-to-day punter more? Competing with 3 international buyers for an investment property or a first home? Or Chevron developing a huge offshore project with onshore production facilities? What do you think is going to have a greater effect? Let me know your answer to that in the comments. And just remind all the CCP 50 Cent Army about that. So, if the situation doesn't escalate further, things will stabilize. Huawei executive chairman Gorg Shim told Reuters in a phone interview, so long as it isn't prolonged, as long as it isn't systematic. May's drop means mainland China now ranks below the United States and Canada as the largest source country for investment in property in Australia, the data shows. Chinese investment typically flows into new apartments, fueling construction activity and employment, and leading to an increased cost of those apartments. Remember, we've got the Cantillon effect, everyone. Wherever money is created or flows into an economy, you'll get a bubble. You'll get a bubble, and that's what we're seeing here. And that's the challenge that all of us are, particularly the younger people who are getting into the market, have to fight. You have to fight this effect. And throwing money at housing grants, this, that, or the other, just fuels that effect. It just fuels it. But a slowdown in Chinese demand will be a fresh blow to an already slowing housing market, though official figures show dwelling approvals up 5.7% from a year ago. Really? Where are building approvals? Oh, yeah, I guess. Not that impressive, though. And that's just approvals. We'll have to see. Economists generally expect the diplomatic tensions to be resolved without too much of a hit to Australia's economy, though the spat is an added risk to an already uncertain outlook. In the current environment, the rise in tensions potentially will have a negative impact, so it is somewhat concerning, said Sarah Hunter, chief economist for BIS Oxford. The Reserve Bank of Australia expressed concern at its June 2 policy meeting about the outlook for dwelling investment, with the construction pipeline drying up, auction activity slowing, and rents creeping lower, and suggesting in internal documents that they should encourage the government to shut down the entire real estate industry. It's funny how that's not mentioned. Got to thank the ABC for doing those freedom of information requests. A pullback could further frustrate Canberra's attempts to reignite the economy, made more difficult by China's decision in May to start suspending beef imports from Australia's major meat exporters and impose hefty tariffs on barley. So there you have it, everyone. Essentially, search results from China are down, so they now have dropped as a large investor in the property sector here in Australia. But that has unintended, completely intended consequences on our property sector here, and it is affecting their investment is having a greater effect on the population here than the investment of other civilizations, even though overall the numbers are bigger. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Do you think this will have a positive or a negative effect on property? Do you think our government will dare to allow this to happen and will do whatever they can to get more money flooding into the country to stimulate construction, to stimulate property, and to keep their own personal portfolios at a nice, healthy level? Or am I getting a little too cynical? As always, thanks for watching. If you're a fan of the channel and want to support us, there are a few ways you can. Simply interacting, watching the content is a great way to help the channel grow. It allows the algorithm to share the content and get it out there. You can support us via joining YouTube or Patreon. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon or eBay or Independent Reserve and Kucoin. You can buy our merch from the HeiseSays blog, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks everyone. I will see you all in the next video.